Who's ready for another one of our guests of honor? Yay! Got any fans of Jetstorm in the room?
Yay!
Any fans of Vegeta? Yeah! Okay, fair enough then. Okay, can we go?
The Secret Files of Teletran 3. A graduate of the acclaimed Studio 58, Brian Drummond first became involved in the world of the Transformers in 1999's Beast Machines as the Vitagon General, Jetstorm. Since then, he has gone on to voice Armada Blur, Energon Shockblast, Cybertron Jetfire, and Jolt throughout the Unicron trilogy. Outside of Transformers, he has gone on to voice some of the biggest characters in pop culture, such as Venom, Wolverine, and Vegeta. Gentlebots, please give a big round of applause for the Cyan Prince himself, Brian Drummond.
The entrance was too long.
He's here. Woo! Exciting, everybody. Oh, so do we stand? We sit? Or just,
I don't know. What do you want to do?
Do we dance? I don't know.
Shall we?
Nobody wants that one filmed. Well, let's sit.
Oh, that phone out of my back pocket. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Welcome to TF Nation.
Oh, thank you, sir. I'm glad to be here at TF Nation. Recuperating from jet lag, but if you see me do this at all, someone throw some coffee in my face. I'll come right back around.
There seems to be a theme running around with us throwing things at guests this year. So don't say that, because there's people who probably will.
It actually might happen. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right. I'm pretty easy going. I'm Canadian. That's all good.
So I always start by asking the question, who is Brian Drummond?
Who is Brian Drummond? Well, he's a small child in a grown man's body, with a small child's brain in a grown man's brain. I don't know, who am I? I'm a guy that likes to create community, have fun, enjoy what I do, be passionate about what I do, and I've been at it as a professional actor for coming up on 30 years, believe it or not. Graduated from theater school in 1991, so I'm a year and a half away from 30 years as a professional performer, and that's all I've been doing for a living. So I've been very thankful for a fabulous career that's still going strong. I left Vancouver just yesterday on a dash from doing a show, and I'm straight back to doing some more when I get back next week. Lots of fun stuff coming down the pipeline, so it's been a real joy. And I think that's a big part of, anybody doing anything in their lives. You want to find something that you're somewhat passionate about and that still keeps the child alive in you, I think. And certainly voiceover does for me.
You know, whenever people turn around and say, oh, I've been doing it 30 years, I keep thinking to myself, you don't look like you were old enough to be working in the 70s. But then I remember it's me that's gotten old, and that's a big problem. So, taking us right back then, where did your passion for acting and drama start?
High school. I took my first acting class, I think in grade 10, and I was very disappointed because in grade 11 and 12, which was a different school than my grade 10 school, it was considered the high school. Grade 10 was junior high. They canceled drama at the high school. It was cutbacks. They always cut the arts first. Whenever there's cutbacks, they never say no more math. I would have been happy about that. They dropped drama. They dropped, some band or guitar or something, and drama was cut, and I wasn't able to take it in grade 11 and 12. I really wanted to, but I had a great friend who, after high school was out, they were doing a summer theater program, and they needed another person for a show that they were doing, and I somehow ended up in this show and had a fabulous time doing it. I thought, this is so much fun. In the small town I grew up in, I'm in Vancouver now, but I grew up in a little town called Salmon Arm, about 5 hours away from the big city of Vancouver. I did a few amateur shows with them, loved it, and then the woman who was supposed to teach theater in the high school, who didn't because they canceled it, she told me after seeing me in a couple shows, you should audition for this theater school in Vancouver. It's a great theater school. They only take 16 people out of like 500 that might audition for it, but I think maybe you could get in, and I did. I got into that program, did that program for 3 years, and that's obviously where I built the foundation for performing. And after graduating in '91, I did theater, film and TV stuff, smaller roles and all the stuff that was shooting in Vancouver, like Stargate and Smallville and X-Files and all those type of things that shot in the city of Vancouver. And then in the early 90s, about 94, I booked my first voiceover gig because I was quite interested in the industry when there was a bit of a forum that was happening from a company called Mainframe was talking about their new first CGI animated television series called Reboot. And I went to this forum, which was kind of in a room sort of like this with a bunch of guys, some animators from Mainframe, a couple of actors, different people talking about the world of animation and trying to sort of get a buzz about this show. I did not get a part on it. I auditioned for the role of Bob, and I did not get it. But the very next thing I went out for was a G.I. Joe Extreme. It was called G.I. Joe Extreme, a series that came out, and I landed one of the leads on that show, a character called Ballistic, who they changed his name quite quickly to Eagle Eye because Ballistic was too aggressive, I guess, and they went with Eagle Eye. And right after that, I booked Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. So it sort of took off from there in 94, 95, and by the early 2000s, that's all I was doing full-time was voiceover, because it took over the theatrical and film side of my life, because I was just booked in the studio all the time.
Do you miss the theatrical side, being on stage?
I do, absolutely do. There's something about working with the team on stage, and there are a lot of people that I do work with still do a lot of stage work and voiceover if they can fit it in around their schedule. I hadn't really been able to, but I had a young family at the time. I have 3 kids now, 24, 21, and 18. But at that time, when you have a family, you look at, make money or make no money. And theater is one of those make no money side of things. As enjoyable as it is, the pay is excruciatingly painful to raise a young family on. But voiceover is a phenomenal industry and has been very favorable to me over the years. So I stuck with the voiceover side, which is so much fun, just like theater, and but not quite the same. But still, I really enjoy it.
Did you generally take straight plays, or was it musical theater, or a mix of the two? Or?
I don't sing well enough to do musical theater. I've sung a lot of things in animation, but I always say they're cartoon type singing, and it's never. I would have loved to when I graduated from theater school. My dream would have been to be one of those triple threats and work on Broadway and in New York. I love going to New York and going to the West End, London, see shows all the time. I probably see 50 plays a year, so I see tons of theater all over Vancouver and then New York, and if I can get across the pond here to see it too. But no, I was never a good enough singer, and I knew the type of work you have to do to be a good enough dancer to pull that off as well. I'm like, forget it. I thought I was a good actor, and I had a good range of voices I could do, but all the rest that's required to become a great stage performer for the likes of the West End or Broadway, I was not looking to be part of my future.
And did you find it difficult making the transition from stage acting to screen to voice work?
The transition to voice work, not so much for. There is a bit of a transition from stage to screen. I did have, there's a lot of work in trying to tone things down when you work in theater and have to do on-camera stuff, because on camera it's so different. You're not playing to the people that are in the orchestra and trying to have facial expressions that someone way up, 200 feet away from you can still somehow see when you have a camera that's zoomed in, looking right in on just your eyeballs. It's very different. You can't overplay things. So I do know my first couple of on-camera auditions, my agent got notes back from casting directors. He's really got to tone it down. It's really theater right now. It's just kind of over the top. And so I worked on sort of taking that down, and then I ended up booking quite a few things on camera. But it wasn't near as fun to me as theater and voiceover was.
So you said that Vegeta was your third gig?
No, I think it was my second one. G.I. Joe Extreme was the very first one, and then I booked Vegeta very shortly after that. My first ever dubbing role was Vegeta. Yeah.
And how did you, because obviously G.I. Joe would have been a US show, so that would have been pre-laid.
Yeah.
And then dubbed for Vegeta. So did you find it difficult, sort of mimicking the lip movement?
It was a little more difficult because I'd never done that before. So going in where it's just me in the room with the director and having to match the lip flaps, and I didn't know, nobody knew anything about that show. When it was first cast in Vancouver, it was the Wild West of dubbing Japanese animated shows. Ocean was starting to do quite a few of them. I think they had done Ranma 1/2, and they were doing some Gundam stuff, but this was really early on, and they were one of the few companies in North America doing much of it at all, so that's how they landed this, and nobody writing for it or the actors knew anything about this Dragon Ball show. It's like, what is it? Who are they? What is this saying? Why is his name Vegetable? What's this guy? Like, it was so strange to us, and we didn't know anything. What are they, superheroes? They have weird powers, they power up. We didn't really know anything about it, so we were coming up with the concepts and ideas for the voices as we went, and the writers were trying to translate this craziness as they went and come up with stuff that seemed a little more legitimate for a North American audience to understand. Even the artists had to take all the blood and stuff that's on the characters in the anime and draw over it to make it look like dirt so that it wasn't blood. So it was totally changed for a North American crowd because it was meant to be shown at after school at about 4 o'clock, whereas now it's on later so they can swear sort of a little bit, and they could show, a lot more aggressive stuff than we were allowed to do. That's why I couldn't say the word hell. I had to say, we'll blast you into another dimension, not blast you to hell. We weren't allowed to say that, so now they can say that, but we couldn't. So it was very different, and all I got was they just said he's this little guy. I didn't even see a picture of him, I don't think. All I read, so I didn't even know what he looked like, said he's a diminutive prince, very arrogant, but he's also an alien. So I didn't know. I thought, was he weird? Is he like green, scaly? I didn't know. So he's a princely, alien, small character. So I just made a choice of pitching my voice a little higher than it usually was to maybe make him sound a little smaller. I tried to add a little bit of arrogance to him because he was supposed to be so full of himself. And I think that's where Vegeta came somewhere in this range, and he was full of himself and wanting to terrorize Kakarot and find the Dragon Balls, and I realized afterwards how much screaming was involved, which was not part of the audition. They didn't have us scream at all, and then you realize, well, this guy screams all the time. So that was a painful process, but yeah, we were making it up as we went. When the show moved to Funimation in Dallas, there was quite an established show already there, so they knew what they were getting into. We didn't know what we were getting into, but still, very, very fun to do nonetheless, and unbelievable that the fandom is still so strong, 20, 25, 30 years later after the show was created. Crazy, just like this, Transformers fandom, Dragon Ball, it's amazing to come across and still talk to people that it's also hard to have people who are well into their 30s and 40s and say, I grew up watching you. I'm like, oh my God, I feel old now. You should have been a child. I was a child.
Does anybody have any questions in the audience? We've got some people running around with Michael who've already
fire away.
They're coming along in just a minute. We've got a gentleman here in the front row, and then there's somebody in the row just behind.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I have 2 questions.
Yes.
1, what advice can you give for people who want to go into voice acting?
And what's the second one?
The second one is it over 9,000?
Is what over 9,000?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's something over 9,000.
Is anything over 9,000? What advice can I give to people who want to get into voice acting? Okay, the first piece of advice I always give is the second word is more important than the first word.
Okay.
Acting. More important than the voice part. I run into lots of people that I do this voice, I do that voice, this voice sounds funny, and I do Homer Simpson, or I do this guy from Family Guy, or I can do Arnold Schwarzenegger, or whatever it may be. All those voices already exist. You need to be able to create your own things, but the acting part is what's important. Learn how to understand performance, comedy, timing, improv, and you can still do all those voices and things with that, but the acting part's important, and with other people. Lots of times people think, well, voice acting is so cool, I kind of like being on my own and being by myself, and I could do voice acting because then it's just me and a microphone in my room by myself. Not when you want to get on shows like these Transformer shows or Beast Machines, or we work with other people and you have to act with other people. So the more opportunity you have to get on a stage with other people, or do improv with other people, or do even YouTube films with other people.
I already do some of those.
Pardon me?
I already do some of those.
Good, then that's an excellent start. That's the kind of stuff that you want to work with. And is it over 9,000? Well, yes, it's always over 9,000. Yeah, oh, where are we going? There we go.
Gentlemen.
So I've got two questions as well.
Yeah.
So first of all, what's it like voicing Vegeta again, or fake Vegeta in Dragon Ball Super? And also, if there's any other character you would like to voice, which one would it be and why?
Ah, okay. So what was it like to come back and do Vegeta again? That was, it was a blast. I thought it was a great idea. I know Chris Sabat, and he just DM'd me on Twitter or texted me or something, because I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and Funimation is based out of Dallas, so they do their work in a completely different place than where I live. That's a long ways away from me. But Chris contacted me and said, if there's a part that came up or something, would you be ever interested in maybe doing something? And I said, well, it really depends on my schedule. I'm on a lot of other shows, so if we can work it out, sure. And I think it was a couple months later, he said, there's a part coming up that's actually really cool. It's Vegeta, a copy version of me that has to fight with me, and this kind of purple version of mine. And I thought, that's a fabulous idea. What an interesting idea. And he said, in the Japanese version, they just use the same voice actor, and we considered that, but we thought, would it maybe be kind of cool to bring back Drummond from the OG Vegeta version, and it would be a real cool kind of Easter egg for the fans. And I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. So he called me up. I couldn't get down to Dallas to do anything, so I just booked a studio in Vancouver. We recorded it all in 4 hours one morning, all sort of the small part of 2 of the episodes and then the main 1 episode, and sent that all down to them. They had one of their directors on Skype with me. I just chatted briefly with Chris because he was directing something else, and then dealt with another director, and we got it all recorded, sent it out, and then my Twitter went crazy a couple months later when it aired. And people were just saying they thought it was really fun and a real nice little treat for the fans out there that still were real big fans of the original Dragon Ball Z. And the second question was,
so if there's any other character you'd like to voice, which one would it be and why?
wow, I'm always asked. I've done so many really cool characters, and I've never really think I wish I could get some part someone else had, because like you said earlier, I've had the chance to voice tons of Marvel characters, Wolverine in a number of movies, and Venom in a Spider-Man Unlimited series, and Dr. Claw and Inspector Gadget, like so many roles that I grew up watching and quite enjoyed. I've got to play myself. I think if I was a better mimic, I would love to do some of the amazing type stuff like Eric Bauza does. He's another Canadian who works out of LA and does all kinds of Looney Tunes characters, which are some of the phenomenal characters that I remember growing up and watching. But I'm not a voice as adept at a voice matching type work that he does, and he's so phenomenal at it that I just think whenever I see him do it, I'm just thrilled that he's so great at it. But something like that if they're recasting some kind of a big role that's a big Disney character or something like that, it would be a thrill to be a part of it. I always, I love, if they had guest roles that came out on Family Guy. I think that's a series that I've always enjoyed. Bob's Burgers is phenomenal. I'm a huge Rick and Morty fan, to do a role on that show. One of those. There's a number of probably more projects I'd like to work on than I wish I had that voice. So lots of projects more than anything, and those are some of them that would be fun to play around with. Mostly because it'd be an opportunity to play with some of the guys that I enjoy their work so much, to work with, and it'd be a lot of fun.
Got a question over here?
Hi. So when you did the voice of Jetstorm.
Yeah.
So what was your process in developing Jetstorm's voice? Like, what were you thinking of? What were you aiming for? That sort of thing.
Well, a lot of it was what the producers asked for. When I think it probably was part of the character breakdown. What we get is a character breakdown. We don't usually get a design. I don't recall seeing actually a visual picture of him. I may have, but I don't think I did. More it was a character design that they said he was a bit almost like two characters. They said and I didn't actually know anything about the story, the further part of the storyline that his spark was Silver Bolt. I didn't know any of that at all when I was auditioning. I just thought he's a new bad guy character that they're trying to cast for this new Beast Machine series. But I knew that they said he's a jet, and we thought it might be kind of fun if he almost sounded like a flight attendant or a pilot, and talking to people, and he was kind of full of himself, but he also could snap and be very aggressive at times. So he had this hidden part of him that was just anger and evil, but this other part that he was kind of playful and arrogant. So they wanted sort of a two-sided thing, and I think I played around with that with Sue Blue, who directed it, and their idea was just that he was kind of playful a little bit, like an airline pilot, would be like talking to the people on the plane, and that's what we did. And then when they wanted him to snap, I just got growlier and more aggressive with him and over the top, and that's how I kind of came up with the decision. You know, it's like, welcome aboard the plane, everyone. It's going to be a wonderful flight today. So we kind of did that, and I think we pitched it up a little bit higher. So they said, we want him even a little more youthful. And then even when he was talking to Megatron, yes, sir, Megatron. And then when he really got mad, they just wanted the growl and the scream to come back, and he would just lose his mind. So it would be, now I'm going to get you! And he would just lose his mind. And then he could snap back. So that's what we played with. And then we sort of settled on that as we worked on the series. And it seemed to work, and I enjoyed doing it.
We've got a hand over here. We've got two people.
It's moving. Focus in the front. He's wearing a Scouter, and yes, I saw him in Scouter today.
When you voiced Energon Shock Blast,
Yes.
if you had remembered the history of the character Shockwave, what got you the idea of using the Vegeta voice for Shock Blast when the previous incarnations of that Shockwave were more like logical and more monotone?
Well, I probably wasn't even connected to knowing that Shockwave had similarity to Shock Blast. And usually what happens in most of these scenarios is you get directed to go a certain version. You say, maybe just go a little gravelier with him and make him more evil, make him stronger. You get kind of directed to a version and a way to make a decision, and I think Terry Klassen directed those ones. And we probably moved to a certain point where, situate him right there. And lots of times voices get chosen based on a lot of other voices that are in a cast. Sometimes if you already have 2 or 3 really deep voices, or 2 or 3 really high-pitched ones, they try and pick ones and move them around so they don't step on the voices of other characters. You don't want to have something too deep. You might go in with a certain deep role and a deep voice character, and they go, oh, now you're starting to sound too much like Dave K's Megatron. So can we pitch him up a little bit? Can we take him down? Can you add a little more rasp? And that's how we sort of come up with the idea for the voice. Even with Jetfire, to give him an Australian accent, I don't think that was my idea. That was somehow in the character description that they wanted to add that to him. So it's interesting how they come up with these ideas and whether they connect to the history of Transformers or not. It's all part of the process of casting, and sometimes different producers just want to put their own spin on things when they're working on a project, and it gets changed along the way.
Did you have much reference to the Transformers franchise before Beast Machines came along?
Did I?
Yeah.
Only from the original stuff that like the Peter Cullen versions and stuff that I watched when I was a kid. So that's all I had. And most of the time when we're given those roles, or those newer projects come out, we don't want to sound like okay, this Megatron, we don't want him to sound like Peter Cullen Megatron. Or this, we don't want to sound like the previous Jetlag. We don't, that's actually quite common that they don't want to sound exactly like the other actor. Otherwise it'll say, we want a voice match for this guy. And then the casting is based on a voice match. And that's not the case for any of those projects that I worked on. They weren't trying to voice match anything else. They weren't referencing other shows at all. Lots of times, as I said, the producers of every new project, Beast Wars is different than Beast Machines, is different than the Armada or Energon or Cybertron. Every different show is helmed by a different group, and they want to have their own spin on it, not be just a continuation of another project. It's their project now, and they want it to sound like this.
And when you joined the cast of Beast Machines, it was predominantly already an established cast because
Yeah.
they moved over from Beast Wars.
Yeah.
So how did you find sort of moving into their group, and how did you find working with the actors?
Well, I knew most of them because I actually worked with quite a few of them on the G.I. Joe Extreme series. So a lot of them were on that project already. Gary Chalk and some of those guys even were that. They worked on G.I. Joe Extreme with me, so I knew all those actors already, and I worked with them on things before. They were definitely had a level of comfort with their characters already because they were very much set. Those voices were set, those characters were set, so they didn't have much to change there. Whereas we were setting these three new Decepticon characters that were well, four new. I guess there were other ones too, but the main three were quite different. And I know they spent more time with us trying to really solidify who these three bad guys were that the main cast was going to have to deal with most of the time. So I know we probably got a lot more notes early on. Sue was probably giving us a lot more notes than she was giving them.
And how did it feel working with Sue Bloom as your director?
Fabulous, because she was the one who cast G.I. Joe Extreme. So she was on that project, and she's amazing, right? She's just a bundle of pure energy, and she knows exactly what she wants. Because she's a voice actor as well, she's kind of an actor's actor, so she understands the directing process, but also understands what someone needs to do to make something happen, and communicates that very well. And she's always was just a really super positive sort of tiny ball of blonde-haired energy. She's just great, and very experienced as well.
Do we have, I've got a gentleman down here, and then there's a one.
A couple of questions.
Yeah.
The first one, if you could reprise any of your works, who would it be?
If I could go back and do it again, you mean, or
Reprise.
reprise it? So, wow. That's any of my roles. Is that so? You're meaning a role that I don't have anymore that someone else is doing?
I mean, if you could rework Ryuk or Vegeta, I mean, any of them in the lot, what would you want to jump at the first chance at?
Yeah, boy, that's a good one. I think I really had a blast doing for about 4 or 5 movies playing Wolverine. So, and he's my favorite Marvel character from when I grew up. So getting a chance to do that was a huge thrill for me. So a series came along, and they were doing it based out of my area. And Steve Blum wasn't available to do it, or wasn't up for doing it. He was a phenomenal performer as well. I love Steve. I would jump at a chance like that in a heartbeat. That'd probably be it, because I'm a pretty big Marvel fan. Vegeta would be great too if they were doing Vegeta again, but it's a really rough one on the voice too. So you got to be prepared for a whole lot of voice trashing, and because I'm on lots of projects, I would really have to know. I would probably say, whenever I'm doing Dragon Ball, I can only do it on Fridays, so I can have a weekend to recuperate to get better for the following week.
I think your voice is actually unique. Sabat sounds very much like an old 60-year-old smoker. And Kaiju Tang from Bang Zoom tried to impersonate him.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's different. I mean, that's one amazing thing about voices is everyone's is unique. I try to tell that when I teach voiceover performing classes, is that your own resonance, your own voice is completely unique, and every single person in here could come up with different characters that I wouldn't be able to match or make the same. We've all got different sounds to what we do. Did you have a second question, or just answer?
Yes. Who was the craziest fan you've ever met in your entire professional career?
The craziest fan I've ever met. Wow. That guy right over there. No. you know, I don't know if I've met that many really crazy fans. I've met some fans that are crazy about the show more than anything. But I don't know if I like the word crazy as much as I like the word maybe passionate fans. Yeah, I've met some passionate fans that could probably talk my ear off for 2 hours about a show, and I would just nod and listen, which I'm usually fine with as long as there's not a giant line of people that want to talk as well. So I wouldn't say I've ever met a crazy fan, but I've certainly met some passionate ones. And sometimes it's always awkward for me because I just think of myself as just another guy. I have a certain type of job, and everyone here has their own certain type of job, so I don't think there's anything special about that. So to sometimes go to conventions and some people are literally shaking when they're trying to come up with how to talk to you. It is a little bizarre for me, and I try to do my best to see if I can help them calm down. And I'm just a dude. You can ask me whatever you want. Don't worry about it. Don't be nervous about it. I'm not afraid to answer any question or talk about anything. I'm just a guy with a job that happens to be kind of cool.
There was a question over here. Yeah.
What kind of role and what type of character are your favourites to play?
Type of role and kind of characters. You know, the villains always get the best dialogue. I don't know what it is about writers. They just tend to really know. Maybe it's deep down every writer always likes to write the bad guys, and they can find, they just get to say stuff you don't get to say with the good guys. And so there just seems to be way more of a story arc for the villains, or a real dark, brooding anti-hero type characters like the Wolverines of the world, or the Batmans, or they just tend to get. To me, I always enjoy reading that type of dialogue. So when I see villain characters come across in the sides, they always seem to have so much more fun stuff to say. So the more fun the dialogue is, the more fun it usually is to audition for them, and the more fun it usually is to play those roles. So I do tend to prefer the villain or the anti-hero for sure.
We've got a question down at the front. They're coming.
Microphone traveling, the microphone's traveling.
So I'm always told by people that going into the creative industry, any part acting, directing, writing, whatever, isn't proper job, won't make you money, and this is the right people in my college, right? So what can I say to them to actually prove that it will happen, you will get lucky, and you will get to where you want to be?
For people that are saying it's not a proper job to sort of go into that industry, yeah, I don't know what those people are paying attention to, because I don't know if they've seen some of the dollars that the recent Marvel movies have grossed. I don't know if they've seen what type of dollars that the video game industry puts together, and what type of dollars Broadway and the West End create in theatrical productions, and what type of incredible YouTube revenue really creative YouTubers make. I mean, I don't know where they get that information from, but I always, everything to me always starts with creativity. Without the creative person, what do any of us have to live for? I mean, a lot of people like, well, I go to work and I do this job and I make this money, and there might be, the finance industry, that's great to know how to, investor dollars, and being a surgeon, yes, we all need to stay healthy and be looked after, but all those people that do all those things still want to be entertained, and they want to travel, and they want to spend their money on beautiful things, which are always created by an artist, right? Even the chandelier in this room, an artist made that, and somebody had to design what the stage is going to look like, what this backdrop is going to look like, everything, the pattern on the carpet, an artist created that, the chairs that are in this room that you're sitting on, someone designed the frame, someone designed the pattern on. I mean, we're surrounded by it, and it doesn't exist without creativity and without artists, and I think that's foolish to say it's not an industry that you can support yourself in, because it's completely untrue. I think if you're passionate about what you do and you work hard enough towards it to become the best at it, the best that you can possibly be, and are constantly trying to increase your skill level, you will work and there'll be a massive demand. In the city I'm from, in Vancouver, there is so much happening, not just in the voiceover side, but in the side of the artists, like working on animated projects. You cannot even get out of an art school or in Vancouver and you get snapped up within seconds, and you're animating on like Rick and Morty or Ninjago or something. You're within moments of getting out of school. You cannot get it, like they just snap up everybody as soon as they get out. You might not even know how to use the programs that they're using to animate things. And they're like, no problem, we'll show you how to do that. You've got some skill, come with us. They're so desperate for that talent right now. So anybody who has that and is willing to cultivate it, you'll work, guaranteed. You might have to be in a center where those jobs exist. That's sort of the only challenge, because they do get people who want to do the voiceover side of work, and they say, well, I live in the middle of some small town in Utah, and you're in the middle of nowhere. Like that will be a difficult place to probably, you might be a really good actor and incredible voices, but it's going to be hard to work from there. You probably are going to have to go to the centers where that industry exists, like Toronto, Vancouver, New York City, Dallas, LA, in North America. Anyhow, you'd have to go to those places to compete for the jobs. It might be hard to do from some tiny town in the middle of America. Same with the artistic side. You're probably going to have to go where those careers exist, but the work is there, definitely.
Got a question over there?
Who would you say is your most, out of all characters you've done, who would you say is the most crazy and insane character you've done?
Crazy, and where's this question coming from? Oh, there it is, okay. Who's the most crazy and insane character I've done? I've done a lot of crazy and insane characters. Vegeta is right up near the top. Right, and maybe not so much for crazy, but just for insane amounts of screaming and over-the-top villainous attitude. He is right near the top. There's a character, and we only did one season of the show. It was called Packages from Planet X, which was a crazy show. I played this old, nutty alien, but he was in a human's body. But he was like a 90-year-old man. The human body form he took on, so he was like a cranky old man, but his name was Copernicus, and he was this cranky, screaming, out-of-control bad guy who had like this squid sidekick who did all his dirty work for him. But that was probably one of the nuttiest characters I've ever played. A really well-written show, but didn't find the audience in the time slots that it had, and we only did one season. But that guy is probably up there. I know whenever I got to work on it, I was like, this guy is out of control crazy. But that guy and Vegeta are probably two of my top nutty guys.
Obviously, you've voiced Vegeta.
Yeah.
As you said earlier on, there's a lot of screaming in Dragon Ball.
There's a lot of screaming. It was not on the page when we auditioned for these roles. It should have been in all caps at the bottom. This role requires an extensive amount of screaming. Do not audition unless you really enjoy screaming. It wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was not there.
And you've also done Dr. Claw.
Yes.
Which obviously originally voiced by Frank Welker, but
Yeah.
when he did it, and you've done a very similar voice to how Frank tracked the character, very gravelly and things like that. How do you protect your voice?
Well, you know, big, deep, gravelly voices don't actually hurt my voice at all. They require a lot of air. So like really big guys, huge guys. None of that actually hurts at all. What really hurts is when you have to force that to be loud. So if you have to, any kind of voice, whether it's a normal, my own voice, if I go to a hockey game, that's what I watch hockey. So I see a lot of hockey. If I go to hockey and I'm screaming my own voice, my voice hurts the next day. So if I'm screaming as Vegeta, which is a big stuff voice, and you have to take that voice and scream it. Or if you had to scream Dr. Claw, or I did these bunch of orc war bosses in some Warhammer games, screaming those guys, that was terrible. But anything that you have to force it louder, those are the ones that hurt. But actually pitching things high or low doesn't hurt like people would think it does. It's actually quite comfortable if you have the right air support for it. It's not a big issue. It's the yelling part that does it. That's not fun.
Which was 90% Dragon Ball.
I know, yeah. No idea when we watch it, we go, how long does this fight go for? 7 episodes. No. Do they ever stop and talk during it? No, they just power up and they keep powering up. And can we loop the power up? Meaning, can I screen part of it and just use it again? No, they're all different lengths. We have to do a new screen for each one. There's almost crying in those sessions, right?
It must have been an odd show to come onto though as well, because I remember watching it and thinking, there's nothing to this length where they will spend 7 episodes on a power-up.
Yeah.
Somebody's doing something over here and Vegeta's standing on top of a mountain screaming. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So was that a weird type of animation to come into?
Totally weird. I'd never done anything like that. So when it started, when Vegeta first shows up, that stuff isn't there in the first couple episodes until he, because Nappa's with him, he's getting him to do all the dirty work, and he's not powering up much. It sort of comes further into that series, and man, when it showed up, I was like, what? How much screaming do we have to? I can't believe this. It was crazy. It was the only show I've ever completely lost my voice on. And I still remember to this day, because we're not allowed to do 8-hour sessions anymore. Now the maximum is 4 hours. The union changed the rules because of that show. But I had an 8-hour session of Dragon Ball Z, and I was meeting friends for dinner afterwards, and I just wrote things on paper for what I needed to order, for what I wanted to say, because I had nothing. It was like that. After Dragon Ball Z. One time it's happened to me. That was the show.
One last question from me, and then I'm going to turn it back over to the audience. Yeah. How does it feel to be one of the greatest memes on the internet?
I don't know. What meme are we talking about? which meme is that? Well, I have a sweet hat because of it now, and I have some shirts because of it now. And it was the weirdest thing ever when I found out about it, which was, I don't know, it was ages ago when I was first told about it. And I think I was at a convention, just a random anime one, it wasn't specifically to Dragon Ball Z. Someone said, have you seen the over 9,000 meme? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Is that English? What do you mean over 9,000? Like, I didn't even remember saying the line, it's over 9,000. You say 1 million lines, and that's one show I said a ton of lines on. And then you say you're on 15 other shows. No one could say it to you. It's like someone picking out some random thing you said 5 years ago, and you'd be like, what? What did I say? Was I drunk then? Like, you just don't know. And someone said, the over 9,000 meme. I'm like, I don't know what you mean. It's somebody put together you as Vegeta saying it's over 9,000, and they repeat it over and over a bunch of times and kind of mix it, and it's this thing that's really big on the internet right now. I'm like, what do you mean it's big on the internet? Lots of people are watching it. It has a lot of views. Okay, now what does this mean to me? I had no idea what it meant, and some people started to talk about it. There were some rappers in Vancouver that had used it in their rap video, and then someone came up to me, yeah, it's a really big thing on the college circuit now, because, if a girl is super cute, they're like, whoa man, she's over 9,000, right? Like I didn't even know what it became the same, and then, it just got weird, and now I just live with it now, and I just wear it. Now I just wear the hat and don't even hide. I don't even hide from it now, it's all good.
Have you ever inadvertently used it?
Inadvertently? No, I only purposely use it. Yes, only purposely. It never just randomly comes out of my mouth. Like, my wife makes a phenomenal meal. Baby, this is over 9,000. I never said that.
I'm guessing we'd be shut up in the dinner at that point.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions from the audience?
More questions?
Yeah, we've got one there at the back.
I'll ask one. Obviously Vegeta, most of his points that he gets across are through real raw emotion. And were you given guidance on that? Or were you allowed to riff on what he did? Because it's really impressive the way he gets his point across.
Dubbing is a really strange job, because as an actor, your instincts are to want to say something a certain way. And for instance, the over 9,000 is not the way I would probably, when I look back and watch it, I would ever say that. But those were the words they wrote for his mouth flaps that did that amount of flapping. So, and you look back on it, and I don't remember recording that actual line, but I've created a memory for myself now around it that I'm sure that I probably saw on the script. Nappa says what he says to me, and then I see my line, and Vegeta says, it's over 9,000. So I probably yelled that out and said, it's over 9,000! And then the director, oh, Brian, that's a little bit short. Can you make it just a little bit longer? His mouth is still open. So we gotta make it as long as his mouth stays open. Oh, okay. It's over 9,000! Yeah, that was still too short, Brian. We gotta... I would never say it that way. I would have been finished earlier. So now the reason it kind of gets carried out longer and weirdly longer, which made it such a bizarre meme, is that I'm forced to make it sound unusual just to fit the mouth flaps. That's what happens a lot with animation. You can't really riff on things too much or improv very much or play around with dialogue. Sometimes we change things a little bit to make them fit better, but you have a certain time you have to start talking and a certain time you have to finish. So that really limits what you're allowed to do as an actor, because you can't just go with your instincts. You have to go with start now, and you got to make sure you finish the line by then because his mouth is closed. And if it didn't work then, you got to try and finish it faster, or you got to try and stretch it out longer until it closes. So that's why sometimes dubbing can have some really awkward reads. You're like, why? That just doesn't sound normal, what they're saying, them saying it that way. And it's because of trying to match lip flaps as opposed to just doing a performance. If there were no lip flaps, Vegeta would probably be a totally different guy. He wouldn't have, that meme would not exist if I didn't have to match lip flaps.
Right, okay, so we've only got a couple of minutes left. As you've probably guessed by coming here, we're a classy show.
Oh, big time.
So I like to think of myself as a pretty good host. I feel like we've got a bit of inside the actor studio vibe going on.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Anybody familiar with that show?
Inside the actor studio?
Yeah. So, as you probably all know, it famously ends with a quick fire 10 questions, which I'm going to throw at you.
Oh, jeez.
Do you remember any of them?
Any what?
The 10 questions?
No.
Oh, well, you're in for a treat.
Okay.
Okay, first word that comes to your mind. What's your favourite word?
Trampoline.
What's your least favourite word?
Kangaroo.
What turns you on?
Medium rare steak.
What turns you off?
Maggots.
What sound do you love?
What?
What sound do you love?
What sound do I love? Sizzling steak.
What sound do you hate?
Sirens.
What's your favourite PG curse word?
Favorite PG curse word?
Yeah, we're a family show.
Mother, father.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Architecture.
What profession would you not like to do?
Heart surgery.
And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
He's over 9,000!